what the implications are. So to me, the excitement is it can inspire us to pick up binary economics as a solution.
Well, okay, we don't have binary economics. We're talking about a world that is not. We're talking in a world that's doing all it can to maintain the old paradigm. It's like when Galileo said we don't go around, the sun goes around us. There were all kinds of people who tried to justify that old paradigm. Or that screed you wrote from the fellow in California about the untidy democracy of having all kinds of people doing things and everything. That's propaganda.
Right.
And so, but you don't need to do that. I mean, if everybody, yeah, I mean, as part of a large...
Are you saying, Harold, this is propaganda?
Yeah, sure. That's for a people, and it's, no, not propaganda is a strong term. I used to have a friend, Frankie Petricolo, who used to call it bopagandas, using bop, 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 or whatever in order to get an idea across. Louis used to talk about the advertising, and people say they're creating false needs in people, so they'll go out and buy things they don't need and all that. He used to say it's really a cutthroat competition in order to get some little take on the inadequate buying power that the general population has.
That's an interesting expression, inadequate buying power.
Yeah, they don't have enough money. Right. So they're competing for the people to go out and buy product A rather than product B. It's not creating needs, although there is some of that there. Shoes are obvious, but then when you get into which perfume, it's a little more nuanced and that kind of thing. You know, but it's all based on the assumption that there's not enough buying power. Because he said the financing should be able to form capital, and it also should distribute buying power among the people, or demand, or simul-financing, and we don't do that. We just distribute it all through labor, and that's why he has a critique of the system. But you can't talk about binary economic as existing. It isn't there. It's just something that should be there. Up, and the guy I expect would be very much in opposition to what you're trying to do, because you reach out to all kinds of people outside of the normally accepted paradigm that people are comfortable with.
I got wind that Nico Haupt is very upset at us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's very frustrated, and he feels that the direction that we're taking is not moving quick enough, not fast enough.
To show what?
Well, he feels that...
Is that it? He thinks we've got destructive weapons we should be aware of, all of the dark research, and that we don't have to pay enough attention to how destructive the weapons are.
And that we're not
calling... What the basic thrust of his thing is.
And that we're not bold enough about the TV fakery.
Well, the TV fakery is... That would be... I would say that would be one person who thinks, maybe I'm overboard on binary economics, somebody else is overboard on... If only we get a black president, or it's all racism, or some people say it's all misogyny, or the people that think you shouldn't eat anything but grains and not meat. People who have an idea that is really crucial, they think, to just touching in and showing, or Ugly George says that they're such hypocrites about sex, or any particular kind of take on it, is something that the environment is very ripe for now.
But usually at the basis...
There's so much angst in the universe as we make a gigantic transition, in my view, from a non-zero sum to a non-zero sum reality, from a zero-sum reality that's been characteristic of history. And we're not making that, particularly at a level of economic theory, because we're all hung up on the labor theory of value, just as the world was hung up on a geocentric view of the universe in Mr. Galileo and Copernicus, Kepler's time.
But see, what I can really pause and take a lot of grief, when I take that in, his frustration, because he's living in very difficult circumstances, and so is Al Duffy, the real artists that we talk about. And even in your conversation with Julia, Calfee, you were saying sometimes the artists are even regarded as criminals.
They are. They're definitely associated with the criminal class, the creative ones, because they're outside the fishbowl of the accepted paradigm. Bob Ashford could be associated with that, because you're proposing something that is not on the agenda of the thinking.
Yeah, so when you hear that somebody has their site taken down, you automatically think, oh, he must be wrong, he must be bad. And then when you read
I
something...
don't. You might, but
no,
I don't.
No, but that's sort of... Nobody is saying, really, what do we need to do to gain the power to sit down with YouTube?
I think you're right. You're onto something really important there, Paula, because I was really alarmed when they took down something you had done one time back there, and some dude had said there was copyright infringement. But then but it's the ultimate challenge is to not just say that these people are being irrational or something, but to be able to have a system where you're going to be able to understand where they're coming from. And like a pseudopod, they call it, with an amoeba reaching out from the... you'll be able to include them in a pattern, and that's at a level of understanding. So I went to you when you said they were taking it down. I wanted to go to what their policy assumptions were. We want to live under a rule of law. We don't want anarchy loose. We have to lay us on with the historically inherited institutions and understand the psychology and the mindset of those responsible for the inherited institutions without just tearing them down. So that's a different kind of thing. So you'd want to understand the policy assumptions by which they operate something so significant as YouTube, and why would they consider not having something. And there are some things, even Sidney Dean used to say you can't have illegal, fraudulent things that are going to be sanctioned by a system or something.
But what could be more illegal or fraudulent than knocking down the World Trade Center and shifting the stories?
Illegal, all right, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I know.
It's so mind-boggling, you can't really get your head around it, even though I'm involved with it.
But you with Frank and everything, and what he wanted to do was put those criminals in the dock. And there's a sentiment along those lines. You know, the Cheney and Bush, and there's 4,000 killed in Iraq now, and all of that. I can remember the same sentiment at the time of Vietnam. And so there is that sentiment and everything. But so then if you're saying you want to have some reaching out to the people who are responsible for that, that's something that people who just think if we just overthrow it or something, I really don't know that everything will be all right if we just get a chance to have their perception understood. And a lot of people who are thinking that way are frustrated. So the frustration will come to the fore out of the angst and everything, and then there may be some answers will emerge. It's like information overload you're going to get. You're going to end up, you're streaming on your laptop, and it's going to morph to the cell phone. And we're going to end up essentially with about 6 or 7 billion television channels all going out into the telecosm. So you're going to have, it's democracy. Things going on in Tibet now and so forth.
Yes, but what I'm saying is knowledge would have its way so that people could inform each other, but when you've got a force that's coming in that starts to tear it apart, like, I don't know, I spent several hours yesterday with people in India trying to figure out the bugs on my computer because all of a sudden it will lock up, like I wasn't able to get in those sites right now.
Yeah, well, you got into that one. Wasn't that 41, the one you got into with you dancing?
Yes. And
you haven't answered the question. Did he mess with the backbeat when you were doing the dancing, or what music were you dancing to when you did that dancing?
Harold, it kind of frustrates...
Like he was putting his own music in.
Harold, I'd kind of like to talk about that, but like I want to focus on this, and it starts to distract. Now, maybe on one hand, your style is to sort of soften a very painful reality. For example, if you were to have this man on your show, I think I know where you're coming from. You would guide it as best as you could, but my frustration would be different than other people's frustration. Not that you interrupt people, but that you wouldn't drive it home to this guy that it's only the amateurs that are talking about the television fakery done during 9/11. That's what my frustration would be with you. Now, to one credit to this guy that he's absolutely right about is that people, you could forgive them for their conditioning or whatever. They do not send in donations. They do not support the media that is critical. It seems like when you're critical, you discourage people so much that they become so tight that they're not feeling that abundance that they may feel when they're even under an illusion. So like this Holocaust survivor that's going to be calling up, or I want to get in touch with, she is the actual example of what a lot of money was exchanged around with these reparations for the atrocities done.
And they've finagled her out of it.
Yes, but
isn't that something? A survivor of Auschwitz had a little money put away in a Swiss bank, and interests here within the American society, lawyers and agencies and things, finagled her out of it. That's sort of a disquieting kind of thing. Steal the money from the Holocaust survivors is what she's claiming.
I know.
I've had people say that some of the people have gotten some of that Swiss bank money, survivors, but that her claim is that it's an interesting claim.
Well, I know. I'm sure she has a very interesting story, but I think
a wonderful person.
But I think it's going to take a lot of courage to stand next to her to go down the track that I think she could reveal.
Dean Lauren is very much on her case, and Dean is one smart cookie.
I know he is.
Yeah, he's really good.
Except he becomes a little discouraged too, because he was saying to Dan Coughlin, if you're really serious about helping the producers, don't have them hand their tapes in 4 days in advance. Make the playing field level, that we could give
What would be
real
the alternative
news.
that Dean would propose?
Well, for example, if you had a producer that could have turned a show in during 9/11, you may have had a whole different outcome, an entirely different outcome.
So Dean is suggesting you streamline the process of submitting tapes or something?
Well, I think where this rule came in was when DeAndrea hopped onto somebody's live show the day that the newspaper hit the stand, I kidnapped my daughter. And then, because it's so powerful. If you
people who are focused on their narrative, if it shows up on the front page of the New York Times, are going to hop on that because it's in what they call hot.
Right.
You know, so people are going to try and that's what the public relations industry and even advertising is about, or that kind of thing. I don't quite understand what Dean had in mind. It's interesting.
What Dean had in mind was the ability to give the news uncensored. Because when you have a 4-day lag time, the news, first of all, isn't as old, it's not as significant. And what they say is the first story that hits you is going to be the strongest story, even if it's not true.
Well, that's probably true. I think that's a thing that's done. I just don't know the alternative for getting programming into the public access realm. They're going through. You have to turn it into tape, then they have to record it, then they have to put it on the programming server, and they have to record it.
I understand your
Also, if I may, we've got news. I get every day on my computer from CNN breaking news.
No, when I
let you know what they think is breaking now.
CNN was also involved in the television fakery. I'm sitting here looking critically to say that it's impossible for the people to have the technology that CNN, ABC, all of the big guys have. I think is belittling democracy. If we don't have access to the same technology that they do to deliver news, we could probably do it more.
They do have they do have very large budgets, and they're very focused on the political, and they're very focused, and they've got a continuity staff that holds everything together, and they got one channel, and that kind of thing. So they got that capability. Public access is not necessarily focusing on the political. Everything on the news is political, practically. And it's focused on things cultural. It's focused on things like they got a kazoo band that's playing out in Ames, Iowa somewhere, or something, or the people. And the people aren't necessarily so focused as the news pros are in the news, so-called news network. You get at things like trends and deeper truths and newer realities or broaderly conceived realities within the access realm that's going to come from the people.
Well, I
would be very interested in what Dean has to say about how that could be made different. If some program is scheduled about a kazoo band, and then this news is breaking, it's really important, let's take that off the air and put this thing up that's breaking. I don't quite understand how they're going to
I can answer that. I can answer that. When DeAndrea broke her story, it was because of Gloria Messer telling the producer who was going to be going live at that moment, and the producer made the choice. He said, I give you my spot. This is fantastic.
Oh, I see. Well, if that's done voluntarily, that's a little tricky. Somebody may be in Switzerland on vacation who scheduled the program, and so they got all that. Also, the idea that there's something that's so breaking is in the mind of the person who thinks that thing that is so breaking is so important, whereas, you know, I don't know. It's a complex question, isn't it?
I kind of understand.
They're going to do it is interesting, yeah.
I understand what you're saying, Harold. There's a lot of people who are so anxious at public access that you don't want that anxiety on the airwaves.
Why are they anxious? Why would people be anxious at public access?
Oh, you know, because they tried to pass the bar and the judge is wired and they're being thrown out of their house, or their child has been, you know, sexually assaulted, you know, little things like that.
That's right.
Or else there's the puppy mills that, you know, Dean says there's a whole thing where poor young women are encouraged to have children so they can sell the children.
Yeah.
A lot of these people come with a lot of very deep
wounds. The horror stories, in a certain sense, at a personal level, are just legion.
Right.
They're just legion. Or imagine being on the streets of, I don't know, Fallujah or something.
Right.
You know, it's just legion in terms of the horror stories that affect the human condition.
Right, so I agree you can't be kind of like vomiting on the audience, but at the same time, I think to have this sort of fairy tale corporate, you know, canned reality is wearing kind of thin on people too, because it's not giving the information that we need to make informed actions and decisions.
Well, then it's a matter of priorities of what's important or what can you do. And then you're also going to be looking, like Norbert Wiener said, information overload permits, and it may be something that specialized takes on things aren't wanting to have, but it permits pattern recognition between a lot of the different aspects of the overall reality. It permits pattern recognition in a way that we haven't been able to do historically nearly so much as we can now.
I just
there might be hope in getting at patterns between subsystems in an overall system.
What I'm trying to say is, as the pattern emerges, I may be one that's going to drop out because it's really getting tiring, Harold. And when Nico said that, I really could pause and reflect. I mean, how long can you keep talking about this?
Now, what you're talking about is specifically the media manipulation and the weapons of incredible destructiveness that was manifest on 9/11. Is that the particular take on reality that you're talking about is so frustrating to try and get across, that there were no airplanes?
Yes, and that if you don't have a binary model, because I know it in my own life, I just cannot understand why people have to work so hard.
That's the major glue that holds the society together, honey. That's the major thing that people are concerned with, the material reality, and it may be being transformed. But anyway. I'm going to be putting up the general meeting on YouTube temporarily, and then we want to get in touch with Anna and transport it over to the ACAP website and optimize that website and everything. And I think there's a great future for ACAP, because that was a moment when things were forming, 1970. I think there'll be a lot of focus on that. And isn't Eugenia Dean gorgeous?
One really nice thing that happened at the end, Harold, I went over to her and I gave her the microphone and I asked if she wanted to say anything.
And it got on the tape then, did it?
If the camera was still rolling, maybe it did. But it was a very intimate moment between me and her, and what she said was that she felt Sydney would have been overwhelmed and so pleased at that
Wonderful.
meeting.
Well, we're coming to a time of abundant capability. In terms of what's coming out of the computer labs now and so forth.
Yeah, but I don't feel
the transition to what would be binary and to a freedom that just hasn't been characteristic of the institutions we've inherited.
But I just
think
it's
a transition time of great angst and so forth.
I'll tell you what might cheer me up is, can I contact the cultoftheamateur.com and see if he would be on your show?
Sure.
Okay, let me try that.
Or we do a stream with him. You know, you could do a stream. Well, you do it because you are so good at reaching out to the far limits of the universe of thought and so forth, and you're really, really good at that. And sure, absolutely do. He's of interest to you. You got it. And would he want to talk to you? You can make a program.
I want him to be on your show.
The issue, because it's the intellectual property rights and amortizing the old system and all of those kind of things. You're cutting into the living of the artists who create things and so forth. So it's a very crucial issue.
No, I want him to be on your show.
What? He's in California.
No, he would call in with Skype. I could sit there with you if you want.
Well, maybe, sure.
Just
if you
like
want to set something up like that, I got some taping dates. I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to talk to him. Okay. I think my favorite medium of communication is the telephone.
Yeah.
But on Skype, we did it before we had trouble. We did it with you, with Norman, didn't we,
right,
from the studio?
Exactly. Yeah.
We could do that. I'd be up for it.
Okay.
And I'm going to tape today. No, I'm going to go make a copy of the general meeting and put it up on YouTube tonight. Did he insert the music?
He inserted the music.
You see, what were you dancing to? Because you missed a couple of backbeat bass riffs, you know. But anyway, that's just another thought. But he's interfering with your creative output.
It's such a big topic. It deserves it deserves its own show.
Anyway, I want to hear the music that you were dancing to. Have you got the original tape?
Go to my website, youtube.com/paulagloria, and you'll see the unedited before he edited.
What is it among the thousands of things you got up there? What would you have to have? What's the forward?
I'll send you the link. Okay?
What is the link within your site of your YouTube account to that specific video?
I can't remember what I titled it.
You got so many. You see, it's information overload. You feeling a little like you're lost in the bush? Do you feel like this?
No, Harold, I'm feeling a little bit like when you get the right people on your show, you're not asking them the right questions, and you're talking too much at the wrong time. That's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling that Nico Haupt is absolutely correct. We're not doing enough. Dan Coughlin was interested in this fellow, that the Ford model said they would help, you know, the agency. Why do they get taken down off YouTube? 5 times. These guys live like guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
Why should that be? Why do we not have binary ownership in something that is imperative for reasons of national security? That's what I'm feeling.
All right. Now, you see, that's the pattern, darling. You're getting to the patterns, beyond the angst. Okay.
Well,
I'm going to get on. I'm going up to YouTube. I'm going up to MNN tonight to copy the stuff from the general meeting.
Okay.
Then that'll be up on YouTube by tonight or tomorrow.
Okay.
And then we'll be in touch and we'll check in with you and everything and keep up all the good work.
But just a second, Harold. Now look you're just talking about all this stuff that most people aren't interested in.
What are people interested in?
They're interested in your answer to what I just said, because I just gave you some real feelings, some real emotion that's going on with me, some real concern, real angst. Now, I am certainly up for feedback. If you're saying, you know, Paula, you are going to alienate the people that can help you, you know, tell me that. That's cool too. But it's really getting scary, Harold. It's really getting scary. And I see Dan Coughlin, you know, he wants MNN to go on. And when I went up at the end of that hearing, you know, that guy said, well, public access will always exist in one form or another. But to me, what he's saying is it's going to be under the same rules as YouTube and Google that's taking everything down. That's
a question that should be definitely addressed. Why do they take something down?
But how do you address it when you have no power?
Rationale by which they take something down.
How do you address it? You don't even know who to address it to.
I just say go to YouTube policy. What are their policies? Under what rubric or under what idea are they taking something down?
But
that's where you want to get at a policy level.
Harold, I went
public access.
I went to YouTube itself with my camera.
I know you physically went to the place.
I physically went to the place. You can't find it. Where are they?
I don't know. Do you have an assumption on why they do it? Why would somebody take something down and not take something else down?
Because
What's the reason? Is it you know, I don't know what, you know, Nico is concerned with that, you say. What is it that they're so worried about having?
Because unlike what this guy is saying,
Yeah.
The amateurs are the only ones who are not invested in corrupt institutions.
Yes,
And
obviously.
they're coming, and so
that's why we want binary, so people will be free from those institutions that are corrupting.
Right.
And they're forced to do that, so we need to have an alteration, yeah.
Right, right.
But that's part of the pattern. I heard you mention in all your angst-ridden pattern, why don't we have binary economics? I would agree with you there, because that's getting to my little hobby horse, which is economic theory.
Yes, but the thing is, this when you say hobby horse, you trivialize it, and it's
trivializing myself, honey. I wasn't trivializing you. I was trivializing myself.
No. I don't even care if you trivialize me, because I see my limitations. I'm very aware of my limitations. But what I'm saying is, when you do have a guest that does have the ability to take a critical look at themselves and what they're doing, to be stronger about getting into what Robert talks about, the embarrassing topics. It's almost embarrassing to ask for capital ownership. It has to be those who have the capital ownership to offer it. So when we do have people from the Council on Foreign Relations or whatever, it has to be broached to say, you know.
Honey, if I may, let me interrupt for a second. I've been doing that. When I used to do programs back about 1973 or 4, I was doing programs with senators and heads of committees and the FCC chairman and all those people, and I was constantly bringing up public access to those circles. You bring it up, but it's just
But
overlooked.
I don't care about public access. I don't want to keep talking about something. I want to create something. That's what I'm saying.
You're doing it in spades. You're doing it as you go through life. Anyway.
One thing I'll hand to you, Harold. I think that nobody thought that what happened when they didn't accept binary at the time of Nixon, that it could have degenerated to this point. And I think what Robert Ashford said, he's not into the crisis thing that it will just all fall apart, because he says when it starts to get bad, then they throw a few breadcrumbs, out to people.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And I think what we have to do is stand steady that we don't want breadcrumbs. We don't want some silly kind of group that says, okay, now you can put your site back up. But rather look into the real cause of the disease here, which to me is capital ownership. That's the problem with YouTube. Where did they get the huge bandwidth? Did they get it from the American Indians, like we got?
No, they did it. They did it through the work of Sergey Brin. Sergey Brin came out of Moscow and out of a garage, or Bill Gates came out of dropped out of college and started Microsoft. Entrepreneurs started big things, and they got a thing going.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is that YouTube had a huge amount of bandwidth at the beginning. Now that they've got the bandwidth, there's YouTube and there's everything else. You can't start up some little blog somewhere else.
And then tomorrow we're taping 2 programs over at MNN.
I think I'm going to cut the tapes because I'm getting tired.
Okay, well, I don't wonder. You're pondering such important issues. By all means, get in touch with them. I think that's there. There's a lot of articles along those lines.
Thank you.
Was that sent by Helena?
My mother sent it.
Oh, your mother. Good for her. It was Genevieve.
Yeah, my family worries about me. What am I doing in New York?
I don't wonder, but I've noticed you've managed to stay out of jail, young lady, and that's a good beginning. Have your nieces left now?
No, they're still here.
Oh, isn't it wonderful to have that? Oh, interesting. One last plug. A real poet, Mikhail Horowitz, is going to be reading at the Bowery Poetry Club this Sunday at 3 p.m., and that's on the Bowery Poetry Club. And he is a real poet, perhaps the best stand-up performance artist in the world.
Are you going to be there?
Absolutely, wouldn't miss it. I got a friend coming in from Frisco, Sangeeta, who's a real jazz guitarist, except he's got the Parkinson's now, which is sort of interfering with the nuanced, playing a guitar. But yeah, there'll be interesting people, because Mikhail's a genuine genius, and he never wanted to be, and he could have been Letterman and all that stuff, he and his friend, but he only wanted to really talk to real, honest-to-God poets. Okay. Which are a rare breed that Julia Calfee made available to us at the Chelsea. Isn't she wonderful? I think she's going to become one of the gang.
Yeah, definitely.
So anyway, as I say, all I have to do is open my mouth and these words pour out like Niagara and equal to all wrapped into one.
So tell me again, it's this Sunday at 3 o'clock?
Yeah, Sunday, March 30,
Okay.
March 30 at 3 p.m. is going to start the event, and I'm going to get over there early. And Mikhail Horowitz, along with 2 other people from upstate, are poets. But Mikhail is a real, honest-to-God, genius talent, and he's a longer. You could look him up, Mikhail he uses now rather than Michael Horowitz, and he's really
and it's the Bowery.
Yeah, so I just get a plug-in for.
What's the address again?
Poetry.
The address, it's 3 o'clock Sunday, March 30th, and
yeah, the
where?
Bowery Poetry Club. You could do it on the net. They got a real rich site. They got it all there. Bowery Poetry Club. And I'm not sure which exactly street. It's on down there by near where Dave McReynolds and those guys are.
Great.
Oh, it's down near Houston, I think.
Okay, great. Well,
but
thanks.
you can look it up on the net, and so that's you ought to think about going if you can, because he's really something else. Yeah, I'm definitely going to get to that.
I usually do 3 o'clock on Sunday with Robert Ashford, but maybe I'll skip this Sunday because I've got such rich information out there already.
Whatever. Yeah, it's high. See, it's information overload, darling. There's too much coming in. You can't cover everything. We're going to have crews like Chester Berger standing out there as a visualizer of the TV news in 1946. We've come a long way. So, and for you, think a year out. It's only going to be getting better. And thanks for the stream. You're really on the cutting edge.
Okay, bye.
And all of that. Say hello to Elena when you get a chance.
Okay.
And keep those nieces out of jail, okay?
Yes, right.
As they cavort around town. And that's some dancing. I still haven't heard. Were you dancing